Welcome back. This is the last lesson recording for IM2, November 5th, 2020. So we've just done some looked at some using the sine, cosine, tangent ratios. So the last one is looking at this triangle. What are the informations that we're dealing with? We're dealing with, this is, we have the reference angle of 20 degrees. So the side with 12 as the side length, this is the opposite side. And this is the hypotenuse because this is the opposite to the right angle. So we're dealing with opposite side and hypotenuse, which is the trig ratio that deals with opposite and hypotenuse. That's sine theta. So we are going to be choosing sine theta. So sine of 20 degrees is 0.43342. So 12 over x, because that's opposite is 12 and hypotenuse is x. So 12 over x is going to be equal to 3.42, 0.342. Then you multiply both sides by x. Okay, and I'm actually going to solve this because this is a very common problem. So a lot of people say, oh, okay, I am just going to multiply both sides by 12 to get what x is. That's not true, okay? So what you need to do is x is the denominator. That means we do not want the x as a denominator. That means we want to multiply both sides by x, okay? And then when you do that, the x divided by x, they cancel out to be my giant one. And you're left with 12 is equal to 0.342x. So then from here, you are dividing both sides by 0.342. And so you're dividing this by 0.342. So 12 divided by 0.342 is x. And you get, when you use the calculator and do 12 divided by 0.342, you get 12 divided by 0.342, you get 35.1. Okay, so and you need to be looking at this and say, okay, does this make sense? Well, if this is 12 units, this is hypotenuse, that means it has to be bigger than 12. Yes, it is bigger than 12, and we're dealing with a very small angle here, so that you do expect the hypotenuse to be much longer than 12, and that's what we have. So that makes sense to you. So make sure you check your answers to make sure that it makes sense and that it is reasonable. Okay, so at this point, you are going to go on to card number 10 to 18. The card number 10 to 18 walks you through identifying the correct sides as adjacent or opposite or hypotenuse, and then choosing the right trig ratio to use, and then using that to solve for the unknown side. So we are going to use what you've just learned to start on our homework. Homework number 21, we are going to start the first 3 questions and we're going to do them together. And then the next 7 problems that you're going to do as your homework, okay? So what you need to do, you need to label each side of the triangle as adjacent, opposite, and adjacent hypotenuse first. Okay, that's a typo there. Choose the appropriate trig ratio from the trig table created during the class, and then find the missing side rounded to the nearest 10. So let's go through it together. Okay, so let's identify. There is my right angle. That means this is a leg and this is a leg and this is the hypotenuse because hypotenuse is going to be opposite. So I am going to label this as my hypotenuse. That means these two are my legs. And so this is my reference angle. So this side here, is this adjacent to, or which means it's next to the angle, or is this opposite? Opposite is this, adjacent is this. So this is adjacent side okay, then you need to be thinking about, okay, choose the appropriate trig ratio. Which is the trig ratio that deals with adjacent and hypotenuse? That's cosine of theta, right? So then we're dealing with cosine of 50, because theta, the angle measure is 50, is we know that it's going to be SOHCAHLO adjacent over hypotenuse, and adjacent over hypotenuse, adjacent is the 16 over x. And we know that cosine of 50. What is cosine of 50? I am going to tell you what it is. It's 0.642. It's 0.642. Hopefully you got that as when you are finishing the table, is going to be equal to 16 over x. That means we have the value as a denominator. That means we can't just multiply both sides by 16. We need to multiply both sides by x to bring the x to the top. So then this goes away to my giant one. So you have x times 0.642 is equal to 16. That means we actually need to divide both sides by 0.642 to get. So you're dividing both sides by 0.642, and you get, so you have x is equal to 16 divided by 0.642. And when you use the calculator, you get 16 divided by 0.642 is equal to 24.9. So I am going to write 24.9. So I know that x is going to be 24.9. Does that look reasonable? Yes, because hypotenuse should be longer than the leg. Okay, so x is 24.9 units. All right, then let's go on to the next problem. Okay, so what are we dealing with? We first need to label. Okay, the opposite to the hypotenuse is, opposite to the right angle is the hypotenuse. We have leg here and a leg here. Okay, this leg is this adjacent to the angle that we know, or is this opposite the 45-degree angle? It is opposite. Okay, so then opposite over hypotenuse. Well, which is the trig ratio that deals with opposite and hypotenuse? That's going to be sine. So, and we're dealing with sine of 45 degrees. I should put degrees there as well. Is going to be equal to opposite over hypotenuse. And again, hypotenuse is x and opposite is the 19 units. Okay, so, and if I look at my table, sine of 45 degrees is 0.7407. 0.707 is going to be equal to 19 over x. And again, I am going to multiply both sides by x here because the x is occurring as a denominator. And then, which cancels that out. So you have 0.707x is equal to 19. So you need to divide both sides by 0.707. Then you use the calculator and you get x to be equal to 19 divided by 0.707, and you get 26.9. So does that look reasonable? Yes, because hypotenuse should be longer than the leg. And if you actually remember, this is 45, 45, 90-degree triangle. That means I could have actually just multiplied 19 by square root of 2. You would have gotten the same thing, same answer, okay? But we're just practicing on using the sine cosine trig ratios, so this works. All right, then finally, let's move my over here. Okay, all right, so finally we need to solve this one. Which one is, what is this? This is 30 degrees. That means this is the opposite side. and this is the adjacent to the angle, so this is adjacent. So we're dealing with tangent of 30 degrees because we're dealing with opposite and adjacent, and that's the tangent ratio is going to be opposite over adjacent, and opposite is x and adjacent is 13. So from here, I am going to multiply both sides by, so we have tangent of 30. What is tangent of 30? If I look at my ratio table that you should figure out as homework is 0.577. So it's 0.577 is going to be equal to x over 13. So how do I solve for x now? what I need to do is I need to multiply both sides by 13. This is much simpler because its denominator, that's 13. So then this just goes away. So x is 0.577 multiplied by 13. I am going to use parentheses so that I don't get my decimal place and multiplication mixed up. So 13 times 0.577 gives me 7.5. Okay, so then you should be looking to see, does this make sense? Okay, well, it's 30 degrees, so and this is 60 degrees, so the opposite to 60 degrees is 13. Opposite to 30 should be smaller than 13, and it's 7.5, so that actually makes sense. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to finish the rest of the homework. And finally, you are going to write down in your table of content in your notebook. For the last lesson, we did the special right triangles. You didn't have a chance to write that down. And then today, we tackled the sine, cosine, and tangent ratios. Okay, and that's it for today.